just a minute. Chantal, are we streaming this morning? We are, aren't we? Okay. Just waiting for the stream, everyone. We'll get going. Good morning, Dutchie. Okay. All right, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the 10-Minute Trades Trade Room, Empire State Manufacturing. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the Trading Director for 10-Minute Trades. Just want to remind everybody that everything that we trade, everything we talk about is for educational purposes. It is possible to lose money trading futures, so trade carefully, please. All right, so we had a good comment from Joe, and I didn't look at the schedule yet this morning. So he's asking, there has been no DMM update on the website. That last week's Friday's DMM is on the website. Now, for one, not everybody's a DMM subscriber in here, but if you are, you can get the most current DMM from the website. And whether or not there will be a DMM is on the schedule. And that's assuming I didn't make a mistake. So I'm assuming if what Joe says is correct, that I made a mistake today, and I did. So I'm looking at the schedule. There is no DMM for Empire State Manufacturing. So here's how you usually can tell. If you look at the three lines, index, risk, and DMM, okay? When there's a DMM, normally there will be a yes in this box like there is today, and there will be a risk number. If there's not a DMM, then normally there won't be a risk number and there'll be a no in the box. Very honestly, I made a mistake. This should have been a no because there is not a DMM for Empire State. So Joe's right. Now, one way that you can also have a double check for the schedule is if you are a DMM subscriber, every day, the day before the trade event, we send by email the DMM. Now, so if you didn't get an email yesterday about a DMM, there probably is not a DMM for today. Emails are sent every day without fail. I mean, without fail. I don't think we've ever missed, maybe once in 5 years, we've maybe missed sending out a DMM email. Now, if you don't get the emails, the best thing you could try to do is whitelist our email address so that emails get to you, because sometimes the ISPs block emails. Or if years ago and you forgot, you asked your ISP not to allow us to send you emails, then it's really hard to unblock a sender if you've ever asked for that sender not to send you emails before. So getting emails is not 100% reliable these days because of security issues. But I made a mistake on the schedule. There is no DMM. You can safely assume if you don't get an email and there's no DMM on the website, that there's no DMM. Okay. All right, Joe. So you're right. I miswrote the schedule. So my mistake. Okay. Empire State. So why is there? It brings up even an interesting point. No, Joe, it's you're allowed to check. I don't mind a bit. Every now and then, every rare moment, every very rare happenings occur where I might make a mistake. It happens. No, I mean, I'm not going to make any excuses. I missed it. It's just that simple. I missed that one. But so why isn't there a DMM for this report? So one of the issues is that this report falls into the category of being a coin flip because it doesn't trade by itself or regularly. In other words, Sometimes it trades with very big news. Sometimes it trades with retail sales, okay? Sometimes it trades by itself. And so when you have a report that doesn't trade the same way most of the time, then you don't have a way to do reliable testing. So Empire State, so how do you tell if a report trades, you know, how it trades? So there used to be a great website, fasteconomicnews.com, but as of late, and they had an amazing schedule. And they just don't do their schedule that well anymore. So you have to do a little bit more work to find out how a report trades. You got to use Forex Factory in this case, or any calendar. So I'll show you quickly what I would do. Now I have notes and a journal, so I can always go back and check the journal and see whether or not this report trades by itself, or if it trades with other news, or if it's regular. I can always check whether or not a report is consistent in the way that it trades, the way that the report releases, so I can determine whether or not we're going to trade it or we can create a DMM for it. So so what I would do, let's say you're new and you have no idea what to do. So go to the report on Forex Factory. So you go to Empire State Manufacturing and click on the file folder. And note all the dates, okay? What you can do, you don't even have to note them, click on it. So if I click on December 15th, which was the previous report, Forex Factory brings up, you'll see right here is Empire State December 15th, and there's a little X. Let me turn my recorder on. Make this a quick lesson. All right, I'm going to backtrack so we have this on recorded. So you're wondering how to find out the way that a news event trades. Does it trade reliably? Does it trade by itself most of the time? Is it a coin flip, meaning sometimes it trades by itself, sometimes it trades with other news that overshadows it? Empire State A is not a gigantic report. Empire State Manufacturing, it's the New York area manufacturing report, New York State. And just by definition over the years, it's not a gigantic moving report. We just know that from experience. So you go to Forex Factory, click on their calendar, go to the day of the report, click on the file folder. What we're trying to find out are the previous dates of the report. They show up when you click on the file folder, click the date, and then at the top of Forex Factory, you'll get an X right here. If you X that out, now I'm in the day, December 15th. I can look at all the reports that traded that morning, and you'll notice U.S. retail sales traded with Empire State as well as import prices. Retail sales is the report that mattered that morning. Empire State, very little meaning when it trades with retail sales. So that's 1 month that Empire State is an issue. Then I go to November 15th, do the same exact thing, exit out. Okay, scroll up and you can see Empire State traded by itself in November. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but that's a process you do for all the dates. We've done that work, and I can tell you this. Empire State Manufacturing traded with retail in December and in October, and it traded alone 3 times previously, November, September, and August. And pretty much I've tested using the NQ on this report. Very, what's the word? Very inconsistent, not really, in my opinion, worth risking money. And I tested it, and we've looked at it for years on gold. So it's probably considered a coin toss, even though in the last 4 out of 6 months, it will trade by itself. But it's been such a mediocre mover and such a small profit style report that we haven't been really trading it. And we only have been watching it most of the time when it's in a room, a trade room with a more meaningful report. The only reason I had this, well, the main reason I decided to have this trade room today is to me, there's tremendous value in the education, especially because we have so many new members coming off of the holiday sale. So the first couple of weeks, the first month, I try to do a little bit extra education for people so they can understand our thinking and why we would or would not trade a report with real money. When a report doesn't give you a great center for profit, then there's no motivation. Modification, I was going to say. There's no motivation to risk your real dollars on the report. If there's a fantastic offset or a very good offset, when I say offset, so for instance, today, they're expecting a result of 25.70. All right, that's the result they're expecting on this report. If they get something like 15, that's a very big negative offset. And that might push gold, if you're trading gold, to the upside. It might be considered good news for the NQ. Good news for the indexes usually pushes them up. Now, today, you've got extreme volatility on the NQ. Now, I say extreme volatility. The more reasonable way to look at the NQ is you've got a very large negative potential market open. The Nasdaq's down over 200 points. The other index that I would test Empire State on would be gold and the Nasdaq. It might possibly move on the ES. We can check the ES after the report. But I'll show you a couple of quick things so you can understand what I mean about. So the first thing I started talking about was the offset. So if there's a big offset, there's a possibility that you'll get a good move from an index or from gold. In November, there was a very good offset with Empire State. So watch what happens. We're trading it. I'm testing it on gold. Testing it on gold. And I believe we used a bracket, around 8. Okay, I have the setup. I'll explain the setup to you in a second. Let's just watch the result with a bracket of 8, and it had a stop of approximately 10. So that's our setup. Watch. The left side of the screen is gold, but very important, I'm going to let it play in real time. So the news comes out on time. It's a very big positive result, and it pushes gold down. A pretty normal looking news trade. Pretty normal looking news trade. Now that's maybe the first time that we've seen Empire State in a very long time behave that way. You notice the NQ, even with an excellent news result, fills you in the right direction, hits a small first target, and then slowly goes in the right direction. So there's some promise. the report has a little bit of promise if it always traded that well, or often traded that well on a report day. But the issue is, if it traded that well over the years, we would have a DMM for it, okay? I'm a maniac, and I like to look at a tremendous amount of reports because I'm always looking for new reports to add to our repertoire of trades. So that's why I'm here this morning. I want to see what Empire State can do again, because it had a good move in November. In December, it couldn't be tested because retail sales was the important trade, not Empire State. It got pretty much ignored. So today it's trading by itself. You know, maybe this year Empire State will trade by itself half the year and our setup will be valid. So here's my gold test for Empire State. I'm using a bracket of 8. And I'll say this, folks, if you signed up with us, it's because you're interested in trading events and news. And it means you probably like it and you want to learn about it. So you want to learn about the basic reports, pick the reports you're interested in and see if there's a trade room, and always come into that trade room. For important reports, or even sub-important, less important reports, I will often have a trade room. If there's a chance at some point down the road, we may have a trade. So Empire State, you know, very honestly, I've been looking at it for years. I'm not super optimistic it's ever going to give us anything worthwhile, but I kind of never give up on the reports. So here's my test, a bracket of 8. I've got a bracket of 8. I've got targets of 5 and 10. It's not very big. I would even consider 4 and 10. If that first target is small, you have a chance to hit it and shrink your stops. You don't have to take a full loss if it doesn't work. My stop is 10. And my entry time is 8:29:59. Okay. And that's a very simple little gold test on this report. 8:29:59, bracket of 8, a target of 4, a target of 10, and a stop of 10. Then I'm going to label my trade gold, Empire. I'm going to apply it, I'm going to okay it, and I'm going to enable it in the control center. All right. That way, when we get ready, my brackets will show up. Now, I have an NQ test also, which was very inconsistent and mediocre in the testing. Let me set the trade up and I'll show you a couple of tests that I did. NQ, the bracket. On the NQ, I'm using a bracket of 9. Okay, you know what? This morning, you've got such significant movement. I'm using a 10. My targets are 6 and 13. And trust me, folks, this is very medium quality testing. I would not trade live. I would test. Okay, I was not that impressed with the testing. My stop is 16. And my entry time, you know, if I thought the testing was amazing, I would trade this live. I would do it. That's why I test. If I do testing, or Chantal does some testing and comes up with a great setup and it works regularly, then we'll trade. So my entry time is 8:29:59. And I'm going to note NQ Empire. All right, so a couple of things: apply it, okay it, enable it, So you see in the strategy all the way to the left, I now can tell which trade is NQ, which trade is gold, all right? And I can easily, if I needed to, cancel one of them. Now the gold open is just taking place. It's a minute and a half old. By canceling I can cancel a trade before the news comes out by just unchecking the enabled box. Now, in order to see your strategies, you have to be on the strategy tab. Not orders, not log, strategy tab, okay? That's very important. Let's check our time sync, right? By going to the website time.is, like we always do. When I go to the website time.is, it puts my computer in sync. And you saw it just do that. That's all I do to put my computer in sync. I go to the website time.is. Now, so look at a recent test. Hey, let's do this. I noticed on the last video. So in the November video, I noticed on the right chart, we were looking at the NQ. So this is November's live trade room. And we were looking at the NQ on the right for Empire State Manufacturing. So let's see what happened. Now, I think, if I remember correctly, it hit the first target, which was 6 ticks. So the news comes out, you get a very little pop, not much, puts you in the market. And then it chops around. Now, the NQ had a tremendous upward trend that day. Or tremendous, had a big upward trend that day. Big upward trend. Not tremendous, big. 300 ticks, 30 points roughly. So you can see it hits the first target. And then it looks like it's going to go and hit the second target. And this is actually exactly what my testing showed also. So last month, you had a very big offset in the news, meaning the expected news result was much different, was very different from what the forecast was. The news result that came out was very different. There was a big difference from the forecast. That's called a big offset. A big offset creates potential for a decent move. So you have a coin toss event that regularly doesn't make big money, and you need more than just the event to take place. You need the event to also have a good offset. So, and I mean, that's true of many reports, but many reports give you months and months and months of consistent results that you can track. In other words, maybe you've got 6 winners out of 9, or maybe you've got, 7 winners out of 12. With Empire State, you don't even get 12 reports in a year to test, because what we're dealing with is a report that doesn't trade the same way. Sometimes it trades with much larger news events and it gets overshadowed because it's just not that big of an event on its own. So that's why I don't always trade an event that we're watching in the trade room with real money, because sometimes it's just not worth throwing your money at that type of a report. You want to trade reports that give you the greatest potential for good profits. I mean, that's just a very simple rule. And that might mean some weeks you might only have a couple of trades some weeks. Some weeks, you'll have 4 trades in a day. Sometimes it really varies depending upon the quality of the event. Okay. So it's very important to realize that. You know what, Calvin, there are no family money trades this week. Australia jobs was a family money trade. That's tomorrow night. And it's had so much slippage over the past 6 reports. And we tested the trap trade with it last month and it worked. So it's just in a period of transition. There is earnings on Thursday, Calvin. We've got Netflix. Now, for me, people don't know how to do the earnings well enough to call it a family money trade, but Netflix earnings is a good earnings report. I mean, that's a report we're definitely trading live. And we've got the 20-year note, but there aren't a lot of money trades this week. It's kind of a weird week, very honestly. It is a weird kind of week. There's not even a trade room on Friday, which is very unusual. Canada retail sales not moving much. We got Netflix earnings, APIs on Wednesday. Everything is out of whack this week because of the holiday. Crude oil's on a Thursday. So it's just not a great trading week. Earnings start. They started today. Don't let me leave the trade room without checking. I want to see if I can figure out what time Goldman Sachs came out this morning. Exactly what time did Goldman Sachs earnings come out? So we're waiting. We have about a minute and a half. So if people stick around, I wanted to look at a couple of indexes just for a minute. I'll show you what I'm thinking after this report. So I'm looking to see, look at gold has a big trend down, right? But the gold open gave you an up candle just to make your life more difficult, and pretty much consolidation. Not an easy gold open to trade. I know a lot of traders are looking at that move down there thinking, wow, that gold open is a guaranteed down, but it just doesn't work that way. So what we want to see is their movement at the exact moment that the news comes out, right? And what kind of move do we get based on the offset? They're expecting a result of 25.70 on the report. That's what they're expecting. And on financial juice, they're expecting 25, but I think that 0.7 is not going to be a big difference. So there's our brackets. The news comes out. It's really negative, really negative. So the NQ has its second promising move in a month, in 3 months. Now watch, gold. So very interesting. So look, this is investigative reporting, so to speak. Investigative reporting. We've got a really negative number from New York Empire State Manufacturing. I mean, monstrous. That's a monstrously negative number. You've got, right, and Calvin, what Calvin is saying, so why the heck did the NQ, and the NQ is clearly moving on this report. It clearly moved on this report, unless somebody said something out there at the exact same moment. Hang on, because I'm hearing the news in my earphones. You had a very, very big NQ move, which doesn't make sense perfectly in terms of the direction, unless it's less inflationary to have a bad manufacturing report, but I'm not sure that I buy that. And the gold reaction is what we would think would be the correct direction for gold. But so you've got 2 out of 3 empire states, 2 out of 3 when it traded by itself, that might make it worth consideration the next time it trades by itself. So what do I do? So let's also look, I uncheck my trade. I don't ever want to change charts with a trade checked off. It could trigger a trade by accident. But I said I wanted to look at the ES possibly on this report. Now, what's interesting, you've got the same move, but what's interesting is the move started early. The move started before 8:30. It started before the news. So it's a little bit of an unknown if the indexes are truly moving with the news on this report. Because look, 8:26, 8:25, 5 minutes early, the ES and the NQ both started moving. They look exact. So hang on. Yeah, no, I mean, this is I mean, the Fed looks at these reports. So if manufacturing is bad, right, what Chantal's saying, maybe the Fed will delay the interest rates increase, a bull trap, you know, all that technical analysis stuff is possible. Of course, the trend is down on both the ES and the NQ. So I don't think this report's big enough to monstrously change trends. I just don't think it is. But, you know, we don't really care. So we don't really care about any of that stuff. The only thing we care about was there movement? And there was tradable movement from the NQ and from gold and the ES. So I'll note that in my journal, and the next room that we have for Empire State, I'll probably take it, I'll consider taking it live in, you know, low risk. I'll consider taking it live, low risk, because over the years, it just hasn't been that big of a report, but reports change and they can become more impactful. Will this particular report become monster impact? I don't think so. I really don't think it will. But if it has enough impact to trade, that's really all we care about, right? So you look at the micro, the MNQ had almost the exact same move. Looks like the exact same move as the full size index. Okay. Oh, it easily hit our targets. Easily. My setup, if anything, today the targets were just way too small. The concern is that the indexes were moving before the news came out. With gold, look at that move. On gold, gold was not really moving before the report. So you could see that there is a gold move. And look at gold's going to go test the high now, right? Do you think gold's going to test that high? It's only a couple of dollars, $3 away, right? Remember what I said about magnet trades? So gold bursts, it gets through the PP here. It should go a little bit higher before it changes direction, if it changes direction today. It should test that new high because it hasn't tested that high in a while, okay? It hasn't tested that specific high in a while. Timothy, the indicator that I use to show, like on gold, that I have it set for points, it's a free indicator, part of NinjaTrader, called Net Change Display. Net Change Display, you can just download it. Just install it from NinjaTrader. Net Change Display. And the adjustment that you make on it, parameters, unit, could either be in points or in percent ticks. And that'll show you that particular index. Gold I have on points, so it's $2 really. Now I think, now I'm just having fun here. I'm in sim. So I'm buying the gold market and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it when it goes and tests that high. Okay. And I would probably use about a 22 tick. I'd probably use a stop below the PP. Okay. A stop below the PP. So somewhere around here might tell you that you're wrong. The problem for taking this trade is it's had such a big move already. It may be exhausted. So that I think there's a little bit of extra risk for it to test that high. It's just what I call a magnet trade. Gold has a tendency to get pulled into, most indexes have a tendency to get pulled into highs and lows or certain very popular pivots, VWAP, things like that. The big problem you're up against here is exhaustion from a very large move. So there is some risk. There is some risk. Let's watch it for a minute, just for a minute. And then I wanted to look at one other thing. I'm trying to figure out exactly. So my trade, my magnet looks a little tired. You'd probably not want to lose any more than that. It's not working. Okay. But of course, that's why I'm testing it. I mean, these are trades I just noticed. They're not trades I've tested their accuracy in terms of percentage. Would I have taken that with real money? I'm not sure, because it was a very tired move. A very tired move. So let's watch right now to see if it's done. No surprise if it's going to pull back by the PP. You also have a very powerful pivot that acts as very strong resistance to the magnet trade also. Okay. Let's just watch for 1 minute. And then I wanted to see if I could tell exactly what time Goldman Sachs earnings were released this morning. So I'm loading up my Thinkorswim. Give me a second. I'm loading up my Thinkorswim to see if Thinkorswim. So my gold trade is not working. All right. Well, wait a minute. So it got down maybe a little farther than I would accept. Okay. On a stop. And give me a second. I'm just looking at my Goldman Sachs. Okay. So Goldman Sachs earnings came out at 7:23. So that makes it almost impossible. How do you trade earnings if they come out at 7:23? Because they probably said 7:30. Okay. I'll bet they said 7:30. So I was hoping maybe Goldman Sachs would be tradable, right? 7:23. You can see that their earnings came out right there. So what index moved like crazy at 723? Did the ES have a reaction at 723? It certainly did. If you look, the ES moved down at 723. Did the YM have a reaction at 723? It certainly did, right? Absolutely. The YM had a reaction at 723. How about now? I don't think it would be a great NQ trade. I wouldn't think. So you look at the NQ at 723. So you see the kind of investigative work you have to do for any type of a trade. So the NQ probably had the worst of all the moves because it looks like maybe it popped up first. And then what about RTY? So what looks actually the most interesting for Goldman Sachs, now the RTY looks like it has a move, not dramatic, not it's similar to like the ES and the others, but to me, what looks interesting is the YM, right? So go back to YM. Go back to 7. Now, the question is, now you got to go back and research, well, what time does Goldman usually release their earnings, right? What times? There's no doubt that the YM had a nice little move. So I'll make a note in my earnings journal, right? My earnings journal that Goldman released at 7:23 on January 18th. And I'll go back and look at maybe the last 4 or 5 earnings periods to see if there's any possibility of adding Goldman Sachs to our earnings trades, right? So one thing I might do is go on to Earnings Whispers also, right? They would probably give the exact time. Type in the symbol for Goldman Sachs and see, here's what you struggle with earnings. 8:30 they were expected. They came out at 7:23, we said, right? So how the heck do you ever know? So I'm not sure we would know what time to be in the trade room. You have to go back and do some more research on previous Goldman Sachs earnings, announcements. Okay. Now, what's interesting on that gold magnet trade, if you had about a 26 tick stop on gold, you could have survived my entry. You're not, you're still hasn't pulled back, still got a possibility of hitting that high, but I would have wanted to see it happen faster. For that trade to work for me, I would have wanted it to see it go faster, and already that big move that ended made it much, in my opinion, made it a lot riskier. But it's not a dead trade if you were willing to risk about 28 ticks on a gold trade. But so I'd say this, couple of things. So what did we learn this morning? What did we learn? Number one, we learned that Empire State might be tradable. Okay. So that was the main reason we were here. We learned that Goldman Sachs has a tradable earnings move, definitely on the YM. Let's look at that ES one more time. I mean, so the ES, here's the way you really can tell really easily, right? Download today's ES data. Download today's ES data. Go to Tools, Historical Data, right? You don't have to run a whole replay. Tools and Historical Data, Market Replay, Load, Get Market Replay, put today's date in, the 18th, and let's download today's ES contract, 0322. We're downloading all the data so far today. Click Download. Close. Disconnect your live connection. Connect playback. Now, put in today's date in both boxes, 1/18/22, right? 1/18/22. Okay, that's okay. If it gives you the error, the start date can't be before the end date, you just change your order. 1/18/22. And then I'm going to put the time, fix that date, my first date, 1/18/22. All right, so both dates are the same. In this blank space, I'm going to click my right mouse button. When the go to shows up in a second, I'm going to click go to, and I'm going to put the time 7 o'clock, okay? AM, 7 a.m. We're going to watch the market for a couple of minutes. Okay, now Ninja has a little bug, okay? When I start the playback, it may reset the time to midnight. If that happens, I'll just put 7 a.m. back in. See, it did that. So just click the blank space again on go, click go, and just put 7 a.m. back in. And then it'll be fine. It's a weirdness of Ninja. So now what's my point here? We know that Goldman Sachs earnings came out at 7:21, right? It's 7 o'clock. Each click of this right arrow, let me think for a second. If I'm losing, no, I apologize. I'm going to play back the actual time. I'm playing back the actual time. There's another way to do this. I'll show you. That's quicker. Another way to do it. So right now, we want to move forward quicker because we want to get to 7:20. Okay. So I want to get to 7:20 on this clock. So I'm zooming up my speed really fast. All right. So we get there quick. All right. We're there. So watch now. Putting my speed back on normal. I'm replaying the market right about when Goldman Sachs earnings come out in a minute. Okay, it's going to be a minute. So I'll speed it up a little bit just to make the time go a little faster. All right, let's watch now. Goldman Sachs is going to come out. It looked like 7:21. So do we have a trade, a possible trade? Would it be manageable? That's the question. This is the actual market behavior this morning. About 30 seconds to go. Did I say 23, Chantal? All right, let's see. If it's 23, then we'll just see. I'm willing to spend 2 minutes to see what's going on with Goldman Sachs earnings. Okay. I can speed this up. I think you're right. It was 23. So let's go. Speeding it up a little bit. 722. So now, if you're putting orders on the chart the way that we do, there was pretty strong upward volatility before their earnings came out. You got to absolutely make sure you didn't get caught in an upward move. Now you would know, now is this their earnings? So we're just watching the index to see if there's a potential of safe trade or not. This was not easy price action to deal with. Not easy price action. Now, using your tools, looking at a real chart of Goldman Sachs, you would know that their earnings didn't come out. You'll see the candle. So now, are the earnings out? Not so easy. Not a great earnings move, to be truthful. Not like what we see in our NQ trades. So, it's debatable whether with the ES, was there a strong tradable move? Right now, it doesn't look that great. But let me show you one other thing. I'm going to disconnect replay, connect my regular live connection, disconnect playback, connect my regular live connection. Okay, it's connected. Let's go to the YM, because that looked like the most interesting move. If you right click this little tiny arrow on the right bottom of the chart, right click it, you could click on go to and put in a time and a date. So it's got today's date. I'm going to put 7 o'clock on the YM. Watch. So I'm at 7 o'clock on the YM, 7:01, 7:02, 7:03, 7:04, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Here comes the earnings. There's the earnings. Looks like the YM reaction was 724. But it had a pretty decent move. It went 68, a 50 tick move. Okay. 50 tick move in the YM. Then it retraced more than half and continued. Now, that's the move. Is it tradable? You would have had to have been unbelievably careful with your orders so you didn't get filled early. So I would say Goldman Sachs might have potential, but it would need to be checked and practiced. Yep, you might have gotten caught in that up move. Earningswhispers.com is probably delayed, Scotty. You need to have a squawk box that isn't delayed. By the time their earnings come out, I just don't believe that they're giving you real-time, free, exactly the moment the earnings come out. You follow? Now, do you mean their printed stuff? Do you mean their printed stuff? Now, they might see, I have not, really explored their website except for research, because I have a method. If it's just printed, you'll never be able to get that fast enough. It wouldn't be fast enough. Scotty, are you saying, see, I don't see them having a Squawk Box. Are you saying they have audio live? Are you saying they have? Yes, I don't think they have audio live. So anything that they print would be after the trade. It'd be after the move. That's why what I do is I'm connecting. I'm actually connecting to TD Ameritrade. And I'm now looking at Intel stock price in real time on this chart here. I'm actually watching Intel pre-market in real time. If there's movement, it'll show it. As long as my chart is set default 24, so I get pre-market and aftermarket price movement. So if the chart's set properly, I'll see the movement. But this is not my news workspace, so I don't set my chart that way. I only set it that way for my news workspace. So if you're trading earnings or news, you need real-time data. Most of the free websites are delayed, okay? Most of the free websites are delayed. Okay? Any questions, folks? So tomorrow is a much busier day. Let's look at the schedule. So my plan is trading core CPI, believe it or not, for Canada. Probably trade building and housing starts, building permits, housing starts. 20-year bond. I'm looking at trading possibly everything tomorrow. Looking at trading possibly everything tomorrow. All right. So tomorrow, the first trade room is early, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Today, there's no oil report in the afternoon because of Martin Luther King Day. It was pushed a day back. Pushed the day back to tomorrow. All right. All right, folks. Any questions? YouTube, everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to give us a like, sign up for the channel, hit the notification bell so you know the next time we're streaming. That would be nice. And thank you all for watching on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. And everybody in the room, I'll see everybody tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Okay?